Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's military has killed at least 2 Palestinians in separate attacks in central Gaza, claiming it fired on men who approached the so-called Yellow Line that leaves more than half of the Gaza Strip under Israeli occupation. The attacks bring the number of Palestinians killed by Israel to at least 241 since the U.S.-brokered ceasefire took effect October 10th. Separately, civil defense workers in Gaza say many Palestinians remain trapped under the rubble of a building that collapsed in Gaza City's Daraj neighborhood. The collapse followed warnings by the United Nations that tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians have been forced to find shelter in severely damaged and unsafe buildings. The Norwegian Refugee Council reports Israel's allowing just 100 aid trucks a day to enter Gaza, far short of the 600 trucks per day Israel pledged under the ceasefire deal. This is Abdelmajid Al-Zaiti, a Palestinian father of 9 whose family joined crowds at a soup kitchen in Khan Yunis Wednesday.
Our life is difficult. Dead people are still better than us. We eat the same food every day. Why? Because we have no other option but the soup kitchen itself. The soup kitchens all over the Gaza Strip are widespread, but this soup kitchen here, because it is in the middle of Al-Mawasi, there's a big number of people. We all come here to the soup kitchen to eat and be able to live and continue living.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces carried out overnight raids on Palestinian communities, killing a 15-year-old boy in the town of Al Yamoun near the city of Jenin. Palestinian sources said soldiers struck 15-year-old Murad Fawzi Abu Seifen with 4 bullets, then prevented ambulance crews from reaching him, leaving him to bleed to death before seizing his body. It's day 37 of what's become the longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history. On Wednesday, the FAA said it'll cut traffic by 10% at 40 U.S. airports beginning Friday, unless the shutdown ends immediately. Up to 4,000 daily flights would be affected. Some 13,000 air traffic controllers and 50,000 Transportation Security Administration agents have been ordered to work without pay during the shutdown. This is Nick Daniels, president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, speaking on CNBC.
Most of these air traffic controllers right now are on 6-day work weeks, 10 hours a day, only 4 days off in a month, balancing their work with their families. And right now, they're saying, I can't continue to do this because I can't even get a second job, so I'll just resign. That's the repercussions of this prolonged shutdown.
A new analysis by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities finds nearly 1.2 million U.S. households, or almost 5 million people, will receive $0 in SNAP food assistance benefits this month. That's despite 2 federal court rulings that the Trump administration must tap contingency funds to keep SNAP entitlements paid during the shutdown. Meanwhile, the shutdown is delaying federal funding to the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which helps some 6 million U.S. households pay their heating or cooling bills. About 1 out of every 6 U.S. households is currently behind on their energy bills. In Sudan, a drone strike killed at least 40 people at a funeral in North Kordofan. Local officials blamed the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group for the strike. North Kordofan is east of Darfur, where a brutal massacre has been unfolding as the RSF took control of the city of Al-Fashir. The attack comes as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the civil war in Sudan is spiraling out of control. The Department of Homeland Security has announced it's ending deportation protections for immigrants from South Sudan. 230 South Sudanese nationals are currently approved to live and work in the U.S. under the Temporary Protected Status Program. According to DHS, immigrants from South Sudan will now have about 60 days to leave the United States. This comes despite the fact the United Nations has warned of escalating armed conflict in South Sudan and widespread food insecurity in the region. The Trump administration also recently ended deportation protection for immigrants from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Syria, and Venezuela. In Chicago, a federal judge Wednesday ordered authorities to improve conditions for immigrants detained at the Broadview ICE jail. Mounting court testimony detailed dangerously overcrowded cells, at times holding up to 150 people, with overflowing toilets, no access to beds, and drinking water that one detainee said, quote, tasted like sewer, unquote. The judge's order requires officials to provide detainees with a clean bedding mat and sufficient space to sleep, soap, towels, toilet paper, toothbrushes, toothpaste, menstrual products, and prescribed medications. Prisoners will also be allowed to shower at least every other day and will have 3 full meals and bottled water upon request. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Oregon has once again barred the Trump administration from sending National Guard troops to quell anti-ICE protests in Portland. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. In more immigration news, federal agents arrested a teacher at a daycare center in Chicago in front of parents and children. Alderperson Matt Martin told NBC News the educator was followed inside by ICE and violently taken away. In one video of the incident, the educator can be heard telling authorities in Spanish that she had papers. Democratic Congress member Mike Quigley said the teacher was a trusted member of the community with a work permit. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, federal immigration agents arrested a U.S. citizen during a raid on a Home Depot, then drove off in his car with his 1-year-old daughter still in the back seat as onlookers shouted in protest, "There's a baby in the back." The man's mother told reporters she later received a call from an unknown number to pick up the girl. Both she and her granddaughter are U.S. citizens. We'll be speaking with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Maria Hinojosa of Latino USA. Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, was groped by a man as she was interacting with citizens on the streets of Mexico City. Video of the incident shows a visibly drunk man trying to kiss her neck and embrace her from behind as she removes his hands and turns to face him. The man was later arrested. This is President Sheinbaum explaining why she's decided to press charges.
And no, I repeat, this is not about being the president. Although if this happens to a president walking down the street, then what happens to other young women? So we cannot let it go as if it were nothing. So yes, I filed a complaint. It's a written petition submitted to the Attorney General of Mexico City, and I will meet with her to sign it formally before the public prosecutor without privileges, because we cannot let this pass. This is about women's dignity and the recognition of our rights.
California Republicans have filed a lawsuit challenging the state's new congressional maps. On Tuesday, California voters overwhelmingly passed Proposition 50 to counter Texas's redistricting effort earlier this year to garner 5 additional House seats for Republicans. In a social media post, President Trump said, quote, "The unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam and that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged," Trump said. In response to the lawsuit, Governor Newsom's spokesperson said, quote, "Good luck, losers." The Supreme Court has heard oral arguments in a major case challenging President Trump's authority to impose sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. On Wednesday, Solicitor General John Sauer argued Trump has the power to unilaterally impose the tariffs under a 1977 law known as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, which grants the president the authority to regulate commerce during wartime or other national emergencies. A majority of the Supreme Court justices appeared skeptical of that argument, siding with states and businesses who argued that the Constitution grants Congress, not the president, the power to impose taxes and regulate foreign commerce. This is Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are. Degenerating money from American citizens.
The Supreme Court's agreed to an expedited schedule in the tariffs case, meaning a decision could come as soon as later this year. The U.S. is proposing that the United Nations Security Council lift sanctions on Syria's president, Ahmad al-Sharaa, and members of his government before their visit to the White House next week. That's according to a draft U.S. resolution obtained by the Associated Press. Al-Shara was the leader of the Islamist insurgent group HTS, or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which was formerly al-Qaeda's official wing in Syria before breaking off in 2016. Since 2014, HTS and its leaders were on the UN Security Council's sanctions list. In Minneapolis, incumbent Democratic Mayor Jacob Frey has defeated Democratic Socialist challenger Omar Fatah in the city's ranked choice voting election. And in New York, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani unveiled his all-female transition team in Queens Wednesday, which includes Lena Khan, the former FTC commissioner under President Biden. Democracy Now! Asked Mayor-elect Mamdani for his message to ICE agents abducting immigrants from 26 Federal Plaza for the last several months. This is Mamdani's response.
My message to ICE agents and to everyone across this city is that everyone will be held to the same standard of the law. If you violate the law, you must be held accountable. And there is sadly a sense that is growing across this country that certain people are allowed to violate that law, whether they be the president or whether they be the agents themselves. And what New Yorkers are looking for is an era of consistency, an era of clarity, an era of conviction. And that is what we will deliver to them.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Narmeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.